What if I told you that there are places on Earth that look as if nature has broken all of its own familiar rules? Why can massive rocks, strange stone pillars, and structures weighing hundreds of tons stand so impossibly against wind, waves, and time for millions of years? From giant circles carved deep into the desert, to rivers that change colour, bizarre forests, mineral-spotted lakes, and lonely rock formations rising from the sea, each landscape feels like a mysterious clue the Earth has left for humans to decode. Although science has proposed many theories about erosion, tectonic forces, minerals, volcanoes, and time, there are still landscapes that make us wonder how they could have formed in such a strange way. Today, we explore impossible places and the most mysterious geological wonders on Earth, where nature turns what seems impossible into reality right before your eyes. Drangania, Faroe Islands. Rising from the boiling sea like the dorsal fin of a prehistoric creature, this basalt block pierces the sky at an intimidating angle, reaching 249 feet high. In the past, this razor-sharp wonder served as a chilling navigation marker, warning sailors of deadly swirling waters that could tear small boats apart. Born from volcanic eruptions about 60 million years ago, the rock was later carved by ocean swells into a hollow archway that looks like a fatal wound. Geologists still struggle to fully explain what physical balance allows such a thin basalt roof to carry a massive weight without collapsing. The landscape becomes violently surreal at sunset when the giant opening turns into a natural picture frame holding the blazing red sun. Sun Dun Cave, Vietnam. It is not just a cave, but a giant underground world hidden by the earth, where real clouds can drift silently through the darkness. To enter this space, people must pass through a harsh journey, starting with a rope descent into an abyss about 262 feet deep before reaching the cave floor. 沙底色. This isolation and difficult access are why fewer people have reached the deepest core of this wonder than have successfully climbed Mount Everest. Inside, some rock vaults are up to 492 feet wide, yet they still hold millions of tons of stone above like a giant natural roof without any man-made columns. Most especially, the underground river carries moisture and helps the cave create its own weather, making clouds and mist float above a tropical forest growing deep beneath the ground. Socotra, Yemen. Cut off from the mainland about 34 million years ago, this island appears like a fragment of another world drifting alone in the sea. In the middle of that dry landscape, white dunes curve around clear turquoise water, creating a beauty that feels both gentle and surreal. Beside them stand desert rose trees, with swollen trunks like elephant legs gripping dry rock before opening into bright pink flowers. The strangest symbol of the island is the dragon's blood tree, whose crown spreads like an upside-down umbrella and whose trunk releases a dark red sap that looks like fresh blood. That resin was once prized by Roman nobles for medicine, dye, and valuable alchemical use. Around all of this rise jagged limestone plateaus and cave systems stretching for miles, helping make Socotra one of the strangest places on Earth. Studlagill, Iceland. Rising from nothingness, this 98-foot deep canyon possesses an absurdly symmetrical structure, making many insist it is computer-generated imagery rather than reality. The visual shock is pushed to the extreme by the violent colour clash between the gloomy dark grey walls tightly enclosing the magically brilliant turquoise water. The mechanism creating this anomalous architecture stems from 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit lava suddenly being rapidly cooled by ice, shrinking and cracking into sharp polygonal columns. Despite this, scientists remain completely baffled by the absurd feeling, unable to explain what force moulded tens of thousands of heavy rock columns to stand so perfectly straight and parallel. More dangerously, that beckoning beauty is actually a ruthless trap because the glacial meltwater always fluctuates between 34 and 37 degrees Fahrenheit, ready to cause instant fatal thermal shock to anyone who slips. Trolltunga, Norway. Reaching absurdly into midair at an altitude of 3,609 feet, this cliff looks like a fragile blade suspended above a 2,297-foot abyss. Around its tip, the empty space creates a violent visual contrast between the cold, grey rock surface and the deep blue glacial lake far below. Although ancient glaciers are known to have torn the mountain apart, the way this massive ledge resists such enormous leverage without snapping still feels almost impossible. The surreal feeling grows because water keeps entering its cracks, freezing into ice wedges and slowly weakening the stone from inside over countless winters. With no protective barriers, stepping onto this lifeless edge feels like placing your body between silent stone and a chilling 10-second fall into the void. Fagradalsfjall Volcano, Iceland. After sleeping for 800 years, Fagradalsfjall wakes the night with bright lava fountains, showing raw power rising from about 9 miles underground. Do not trust the cool black and grey surface because just a few inches below it, lava can reach about 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt a visitor's boots. Instead of erupting from a tall summit, the Earth splits open into a wound about 1,640 feet long, pouring out magma that can move faster than an Olympic sprinter. In the thick, hot air, the sound of cracking basalt keeps echoing, like dry glass breaking again and again across the lava field. Although it is called a tourist volcano, this place still hides dangerous toxic gas, reminding people that the most beautiful destruction can also be deeply dangerous. Sir. Kokohe Beach, New Zealand. resembles a fantasy shoreline where dozens of giant stone spheres lie scattered across the sand like dragon eggs from an ancient legend. Their cracked surfaces form strange web-like patterns, and some broken shells reveal bright calcite crystals hidden inside. Nature spent about 4 million years shaping each boulder in silence beneath the ocean floor before bringing them to light. These natural stone marbles can weigh several tons and grow to nearly 7 feet in diameter, giving the coast an almost unreal appearance. They began as mineral concretions inside ancient mud and were later uncovered by the slow, relentless erosion of the sea. Maori legend tells that they are the fossilized food baskets from the wreck of an ancestral canoe, adding myth to a landscape already filled with mystery. Chocolate Hills, Philippines. Appears as a marvellous geological wonder, turning a vast plain into a massive and attractive candy box. Local folklore says these thousands of hills are the stones and sand left behind after a fierce battle between two ancient giants. From an aerial perspective, the undulating landscape looks exactly like a giant egg tray or a mysterious kingdom built by insects. This unique complex consists of nearly 1,800 identical cone-shaped hills occupying a vast area of 19 square miles. In reality, these rock formations are remnants of prehistoric coral reefs, pushed up from the ocean and sculpted over millions of years. During the parched months, the covering grass withers and turns a rich brown, giving the hills their famous chocolate-like appearance. Waitomo Glowworm Caves, New Zealand. Deep underground in the darkness, thousands of blue lights cover the cave ceiling like a false starry sky, so beautiful that people almost forget it is a living trap. When light shines upward, the dreamy beauty quickly disappears, revealing tens of thousands of cold, sticky threads hanging like a giant hunting web. This glow does not come from flying fireflies, but from fungus gnat larvae clinging to the stone ceiling, using cold light to pull prey into their trap. This strange kingdom lies inside ancient limestone, formed from shells, coral and sea life, remains collected over 30 million years. Once seen by indigenous people as a sacred place and kept hidden for many generations, Waitomo glowworm caves remind us that sometimes the most magical beauty is built on nature's coldest mechanism. Darvaza gas crater, Turkmenistan. Born from a drilling rig collapse in 1971, this man-made crater turned a quiet desert into a giant fire pit that has burned for decades. Even after many attempts to close or fill it, the huge pressure of natural gas underground has made human technology useless. The most frightening part is that there are no real safety barriers. So one slip on the loose sand could send a person falling 98 feet straight into the flames. Its hot, sulfur-filled air and glowing fire also make it a deadly trap, burning countless desert insects and other small creatures that fly into it at night. Although it represents destruction, this blazing crater still has a strange beauty, showing how something dangerous can also become deeply mesmerizing. Risen or Kellingen Faroe Islands. Rising from the ferocious ocean like two colossal ghosts, the giant and the witch basalt sea stacks, towering 233 feet and 223 feet above the waves. Isolated in the open sea, they create an absurd visual illusion, appearing as thin as matchsticks, while carrying tens of thousands of tons of fractured black rock. Even today, scientists still struggle to fully explain how these cracked and fragile-looking structures have survived the relentless force of North Atlantic storms for thousands of years. The surreal feeling intensifies when heavy fog races across the water, making the two pillars look like giant figures slowly walking through the sea. But with the smaller pillar already hollowed out by constant wave erosion, this entire wonder now feels like a slow countdown toward collapse in some future storm. Dalol Hydrothermal Field, Ethiopia. Looking as colourful as an alien world, this hydrothermal field lying 427 feet below sea level is actually a hidden chemical killing ground. Beneath its thin hollow salt crust, a magma chamber as hot as 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit keeps boiling the ground, so this natural furnace never truly cools. In the brutal heat of 122 degrees Fahrenheit, the bright pools are not harmless at all, but acid traps ready to burn and dissolve anything that falls into them. The air is always heavy, with rising chlorine and sulfur gas, making this place so dangerous that visitors can survive there only for a very short time. The only clear sign of humans is a ruined ghost town once built from giant salt blocks, now slowly being eaten and twisted by this deadly land. Ussuri, by Stekleshka Beach, Russia. Once a foul industrial dump filled with sharp waste, this place now shines like a beach covered in crystal. And in the past, millions of bottles, broken ceramics, and factory debris were thrown straight into the sea, making the shore too dangerous to walk on barefoot. Over many decades, the waves shattered, smoothed and reshaped that waste into rounded pieces of frosted glass in green, red, amber and turquoise. In winter, the scene becomes even stranger when the bright glass lies on black volcanic sand and stands out against white snow and ice. From an ecological scar once avoided in shame, it has become a remarkable landscape, as if the ocean itself turned trash into jewels. But that beauty will not last forever, because the waves keep grinding the glass smaller, while many visitors still quietly take the best pieces away. Spotted Lake, Canada. Bajo el sol abrasador, el lago revela más de 365 pozas de colores como una gigantesca ilusión viva. Entre esas pozas se entrelazan crestas minerales pálidas que mantienen cada mancha de agua dentro de su propio pequeño espacio. La escena cambia constantemente porque los colores pueden variar con el tiempo y luego desaparecer otra vez cuando regresa la estación de lluvias. La superficie original del lago ya no permanece completamente intacta, porque una antigua extracción industrial la dañó y dejó atrás solo un resto irregular. Aún así, los pueblos indígenas siguen viéndolo como un agua sagrada y creen que cada mancha tiene su propio poder curativo. Después de una larga lucha para recuperar la tierra en 2001, el lago ahora está estrictamente protegido detrás de una valla de acero para preservar la frágil belleza que aún queda. Sea of Stars, Maldives. As darkness falls, the ocean suddenly transforms into a mirror reflecting the galaxy, where stars seem to melt into every crashing wave. Its most unique feature is the way it mirrors the night sky, doubling the splendor of the cosmos and blurring the line between Earth and the vast heavens. This magic reaches nearly perfect energy efficiency, as the chemical reactions inside the organisms produce light without giving off heat. The magnificent scene is actually created by millions of tiny plankton working together to illuminate the sea. This mystical neon blue is an extremely rare color in nature, and here it bursts vividly beneath the force of the waves. Every time you walk across the wet sand, a surge of glowing light erupts beneath your feet as if you were casting a powerful spell. Lake McDonald, USA. Looking like a giant cut through the mountains, this lake stretches for more than 10 miles and its surface lies calm like a huge mirror. Along the shore are millions of smooth pebbles in red, green, orange and purple, making the water's edge look like a spilled treasure of polished stones. Yet that beauty can also deceive the eye because only a few steps from shore, the water changes from crystal clear to deep blue, revealing a drop of more than 459 feet. The lake is so clear not because of magic, but because it is extremely low in nutrients, leaving almost no chance for algae to cloud the water. Surrounded by old forest and large mountains that block the wind, the lake often becomes completely still, reflecting the sky and mountain slopes like glass. That combination of cold, transparent water, brightly coloured stones, and hidden depth just below your feet is what makes Lake McDonald feel both beautiful enough to enchant and mysterious enough to unsettle. Yelyu Geopark, Taiwan. Stretching into the sea like a strip of stone carved and torn by time and heavy waves, this place is filled with strange rock forms balanced as if they could fall into the ocean at any moment. Its most famous formation now has a neck less than 47 inches around, and many experts believe it may break within the next 5 to 10 years. This narrow landform is about 1 mile long, and it was once a dangerous coast where sharp rock and strong waves destroyed many ships over the centuries. What makes it most memorable is that each rock seems to have its own character, with some looking like the profile of a queen, some like a small shoe, and others like candles melting in the wind. The whole surface is yellow-brown from iron oxide, full of pits and cracks cut deeper by seawater, making the cape look like a broken stone chessboard. In the middle of this landscape, the only human-made statue is not decoration, but a memorial to a local fisherman who jumped into rough waves to save a drowning student in 1964. Bisti Wilderness Area, USA. Looking like a piece of another planet, this wilderness is famous for thousands of strange rock forms carved by wind and water over millions of years into hoodoos that resemble stone mushrooms, flying saucers, and cracked eggs. Even its name feels fitting because Bisti comes from Navajo and carries the idea of standing among natural, adobe-like formations and clay hills. Protected as a wilderness area since 1984, this land of more than 45,000 acres has almost no marked trails or signs, so the deeper you go, the easier it is to lose direction among the repeating gullies. Yet about 70 million years ago, this same place was a wet coastal plain where dinosaurs and ancient forests once lived before being buried under mud and sand. That is why it has become a major fossil ground, with petrified wood lying in the open and even the remains of the Bisty beast, a predator about 30 feet long found in this Badlands landscape. Its surreal shapes, prehistoric past, and total isolation are what make Beastie Wilderness Area one of the strangest wild places in the United States. Great Blue Hole, Belize. From above, it looks like a black circle cut straight into the blue sea, about 1,043 feet wide and 407 feet deep, like a giant question mark of the ocean. At around 98 feet deep, stalactites up to 39 feet long still hang in silence, revealing that this water-filled abyss was once a dry limestone cave before the rising sea swallowed it. Scale is large enough to hold two Boeing 747 planes, but what feels more chilling is the way light and life seem to fade away as divers go down. Below about 295 feet, oxygen almost completely disappears, turning the hole into a dead water zone where most sea creatures cannot survive. Many stalactites below are also clearly tilted, like fossil traces of ancient earthquakes that once bent the cave before it sank into the sea. Salar de Uyuni, Bolivia. Unlike a normal sand desert, this place is the remains of a giant saltwater lake that dried up about 40,000 years ago. When the rains come, a thin layer of water quickly turns the whole surface into a giant mirror, making the sky and the ground seem to become one. In daytime, The bright white salt reflects sunlight so strongly that it can hurt the eyes and even cause temporary blindness without protective glasses. Long before machines arrived, llamas had to carry heavy blocks of salt across this harsh white land for centuries. Standing among millions of cracked salt polygons stretching to the horizon, people suddenly feel tiny and powerless before the silent force of nature. Trona Pinnacles, California, USA. Looking like the ruins of a city turned to stone in the middle of the desert, this place is covered with more than 500 giant limestone towers rising from a cracked dry lake bed. The formations appear in many shapes, from sharp spires and broad, tomb-like blocks to shorter cone forms, making the whole area feel like a strange, abandoned stone complex. The ground beneath them is not ordinary sand, but a salty crust rich in alkali minerals and borax, harsh enough to stop almost all plant life. The largest tower weighs many thousands of tons and rises up to 140 feet, making anyone below feel tiny inside a vast graveyard of stone. In fact, these pillars are mineral remains that formed around underwater springs on the floor of an ancient lake that was once more than 600 feet deep before the sun dried it away. And to reach this stone graveyard, you still have to cross nearly 5 miles of rough dirt road, where one careless mistake can leave a vehicle stranded in this hellish land. Glass Beach, Fort Bragg, USA. Once a foul-smelling coastal dump, this place now shines like a shoreline covered in gemstones after decades of relentless polishing by the sea. When the tide goes out, the beach does not make the soft whisper of sand, but a cold, clicking sound from millions of glass pieces striking one another. Saltwater and sand spent about 30 to 100 years grinding those sharp shards down, while slowly pulling out alkali compounds and turning them cloudy and smooth like jewels. Before that, from 19006 to 1967, people threw everything here, from bottles and household waste to old car bodies and rusted equipment. That is why the shore is now covered in countless pieces of green, red, brown, and blue sea glass, like a museum of trash remade by the ocean into something strangely beautiful. Something. The deepest irony is that many visitors now secretly try to take them away, wanting to keep the very waste that earlier generations once threw aside without care. Valle de la Luna, Chile. Set in one of the driest deserts on Earth, this valley looks like a world that life left behind long ago. Because it is so dry and so similar to another planet, scientists have used this place to test equipment before sending it to Mars. Across that harsh landscape, a wide white crust of salt creates a powerful illusion, making many people think they are looking at snow in the middle of the desert. The air is so dry that sweat seems to vanish almost as soon as it appears, while the land has been carved into large dunes and jagged rock walls that look torn apart. At sunset, the rocks and salt shift from gold to orange, pink, and deep purple, making the whole valley seem to smoulder before darkness takes over. And when night fully arrives, the sudden cold makes the salt crystals contract and crack, leaving behind small popping sounds in the absolute silence. Rishat structure, Mauritania. Looking like a giant eye opened in the Sahara, this place is famous for concentric rings so large that they can only be fully seen from space. Set in one of the hottest and driest desert regions on Earth, the area has almost no plants or shade. So every rock layer lies exposed under brutal sunlight like a giant geologic model. In reality, this is not a meteor crater, but a mass of rock that once swelled upward from below and was slowly stripped down by wind and ancient floods. That is why, from above, the rings appear in different colours and make the whole landform look like a geologic maze spiralling into the centre of the desert. But from the ground you cannot see the full eye because it stretches nearly 30 miles across, and all you face are dry, broken ridges and burning belts of sand. See, after that long erosion, some of the harder rock rings still rise to about 300 feet, making this eye look even more like an ancient city half buried in the desert. Caño Cristales, Colombia. In the middle of deep green rainforest, this river appears like a bright red streak, so striking that it looks like a vein running through the land. The strangest part is that the water itself stays crystal clear, while the red glow below comes from a unique aquatic plant that bursts into colour only when light and water levels are exactly right. The riverbed is not flat either, because the current has carved smooth round holes into the rock, making the bands of colour swirl as if they were moving inside giant bowls. Beneath that clear water, the red clashes with yellow sand, green moss, blue water, and black ancient rock, creating a scene that feels almost unreal. But this beauty does not last all year, and it appears only for a short window between the wet season and the dry season before fading again. Tja. All of it flows over quartzite rock, about 1 billion years old, with water so poor in nutrients that algae can barely grow, which is why Caño Cristales is one of the strangest rivers on Earth. "12 Apostles, Australia." Stand proudly on Australia's southern coast, a wonder shaped by the fury of the ocean and the slow force of time. This landscape is a striking example of nature's randomness, where every collapse helps create a scene that feels both perfect and haunting. Over millions of years, solid cliffs were carved into caves by waves, then into arches, and finally broken down into these isolated limestone pillars. Before 1922, this famous site was known by the far less majestic name Sue and Piglets. Um, Beyond the visible stacks, researchers have also identified 5 more hidden apostles resting beneath the cold ocean surface. Wrapped in thick salt mist, these limestone giants often look like silent spirits guarding the edge of the wild southern sea. Shaozhai Tiankeng, China. Like a giant wound on the skin of the earth, it drops about 2,172 feet deep, so sunlight from the opening can hardly reach the whole bottom. To enter this world, people must cross about 2,800 steep steps, like a test before reaching a wonder formed about 128,000 years ago. Under the mist, made by falling waterfalls, an underground river about 5 miles long flows silently through darkness, wearing down the limestone and helping widen the sinkhole over time. From above, its scale feels even more terrifying, with a length of about 2,054 feet and a width of about 1,762 feet, large enough to turn the bottom into a separate world. Most strangely, this is not just one deep pit, but 2 levels nested together, with the upper level about 1,050 feet deep and the lower level dropping another 1,122 feet. White Pocket, USA. Exposed beneath the desert sun, this stone landscape shocks the eye with cracked sandstone that looks like a giant brain laid open on the ground. What feels even stranger is that the rolling terrain also kills sound very quickly, so at times you can stand at only 60 feet from a companion and your voice almost disappears. In summer, the rock absorbs heat so intensely that the surface can rise above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the whole area into an open air furnace. About 190 million years ago, ancient dunes here were violently disturbed before they hardened, leaving layers of white, red, and orange sandstone twisted and frozen as if they were still melting. Because of that, the most striking feature is the raised brain rock, where folds and polygon patterns make the ground look like a living organ enlarged to an impossible scale. And to reach this wonder, you still have to cross deep sand in a place with no paved road, where one careless move can be enough for a vehicle to be swallowed by the desert. Teahupo'o, French Polynesia. It carries the name Wall of Skulls because the waves here do not only rise high but also fall thick and heavy, like a giant block of concrete crashing into the sea. Because of this danger, rescue jet ski teams must always stay ready because they may be the only chance of survival when a surfer is caught in the violent water. When the wave folds over the coral reef, the water can drop below 20 inches, leaving surfers only one hand span above sharp coral edges. The sound here is not like normal waves on a beach, but a deep explosion when thousands of tons of water smash onto the coral reef. From a watching boat, the wave does not seem to rise from the sea, but looks as if the ocean is falling down and swallowing itself. Jacob's Well, USA. In glass clear water, it opens like a bottomless black eye. Beautiful enough to fascinate people, but dark enough to make them shiver. It is called one of the deadliest diving spots because at least 8 to 9 divers have died while trying to enter the deeper cave levels below. Even more frightening, the fourth cave level has a narrow gap that looks like a way out, but it is actually a mud trap that can leave divers stuck with no room to turn back. The name was inspired by the sacred well in the Bible, making this water source feel both holy and deeply dangerous. From an opening about 13 feet wide, the water leads into an underground limestone cave system, where the vertical drop of about 33 feet is only the beginning of cave levels more than 141 feet deep. Molnár Cave, Hungary. Beneath a beautiful capital, it opens like a buried world of warm water where total silence exists just below the noisy life above. In an environment with no direct escape route, the clear water becomes a dangerous trap because one small mistake can stop divers from finding their way back. This level of risk turns the place into a forbidden zone for normal visitors, open only to cave divers with the highest technical certification. The cave was named after a 19th century pharmacist who studied the water and predicted that a huge underground cave system existed beneath the city. Today, the mapped tunnels stretch about 5 miles and drop more than 328 feet deep. But experts believe this is only a small part of the giant water maze. Psychedelic salt mines, Russia. Deep underground, a technicolor labyrinth emerges like a psychedelic dream, where salt and mineral veins weave together into a bizarre palace. These vibrant patterns are actually the fossilized remnants of a shallow sea that vanished about 280 million years ago. Exploring this forgotten maze is extremely dangerous because unstable tunnels and invisible pockets of methane gas are always lurking in the dark. Located about 650 feet below the surface, immense geological pressure has twisted mineral layers into mesmerizing swirling waves of colour. The air here is a silent enemy, filled with microscopic salt dust that can corrode and ruin expensive electronic equipment within just a few hours. Strange concentric circles on the rock walls are the mechanical footprints of massive drills that once sliced through the earth decades ago. Erta Ale, Ethiopia. In the harsh land of Ethiopia, it looks like a fire door opening into the planet, where a red lava lake has kept boiling for more than a century. To stand near that rim, people must endure burning heat and the heavy smell of sulfur, feeling how small they are before the raw power of the earth. When night falls, the red glow from the lava lake can still light up the sky from more than 19 miles away, turning the dark desert into a burning red scene. This volcano sits where three tectonic plates are pulling apart, making the Earth's crust so thin that magma can rise very close to the surface. In the Afar language, its name means smoking mountain, but many people know it by a more chilling name, the Gateway to Hell. Daha Blue Hole, Egypt. Do not let its clear blue water fool you, because beneath that calm beauty is a vertical sinkhole known as the Diver's Cemetery. Exploring this place is not just a dive into the sea, but a tense mental battle between the ocean's hypnotic beauty and the fear of being swallowed by darkness. The memorial plaques on the rocks stand as a chilling reminder that many divers never return from this deep abyss. From above, the opening looks like an almost perfect dark blue circle, sitting inside clear turquoise water like a giant eye in the sea. Around the mouth are colourful coral reefs full of life. But just below them, the rock wall drops straight down about 427 feet, creating a contrast that is both beautiful and frightening. Sidoarjo mudflow, Indonesia. Instead of exploding with red lava like a normal volcano, it quietly releases hot grey mud that slowly swallows a wide area of land and to stop the muddy sea from spreading farther, people had to build embankments about 33 to 49 feet high, forming a fragile border between normal life and land that is still boiling. In that grey landscape, Gamos are marmos. Human statues covered in mud stand still like ghosts, reminding people of loss, pain, and how small humans are before the power rising from the earth. The cause of this disaster is still fiercely debated, between the idea that oil and gas drilling triggered it and the idea that a distant earthquake set it off. Its impact has lasted for many years, with compensation reaching billions of dollars and the surrounding ground continuing to sink like a wound that cannot close. Boiling Lake, Dominica. Deep inside the tropical rainforest, it appears like a giant pot of the earth, where grey-green water keeps boiling strongly because of heat from below. To see this scene, people must pass through a difficult hike of about 8 hours before clearly feeling geothermal heat rising beneath their feet. Even the edge of the lake stays between 180 and 197 degrees Fahrenheit, while the surrounding rocks are stained into strange red, yellow, and black colours by minerals. What makes it frightening is that the water level can change suddenly, and the lake has even dropped or stopped boiling mysteriously before returning with stronger force. From the lake, hot mineral water flows outward, leaving unusual colour streaks on the rocks and making this place feel like land still being cooked by the heart of the earth. Mount Yasua, Vanuatu. In the dark of the Pacific, it glows like a living fire stage, where magma fireworks have erupted almost non-stop for more than 800 years. What makes it even stranger is that near the boiling crater stands what is known as the world's most dangerous mailbox, where visitors can send postcards from the edge of the volcano. Around the volcano lies a dark grey ash field, bare like the surface of the moon, creating a strong contrast with the green forest far away. In 1774, the red glow from its summit guided Captain James Cook to this island, giving Mount Yasua the name Lighthouse of the Pacific. Few active volcanoes are this easy to reach because visitors can drive close to the crater and then walk to the top to watch boiling magma without needing very complex gear. Mount Nyiragongo, Democratic Republic of the Congo. Welcome to the Kingdom of Demons, where a giant lava lake keeps boiling red inside the crater like a sea of fire that never sleeps. Standing before this abyss, people can feel unbelievably small, because below them, magma streams twist and move with the raw destructive power of the earth. In air thick with sulphur, the crater, about 1 mile wide, throws a red glow into the night sky, making the scene look like a giant crack opening from inside the ground. Every day, this volcano also releases tens of thousands of tons of sulfur gas, creating acid rain and changing the ecosystem around it. Because the lava has very low silica, the fire here is unusually fluid and can race down the mountain at up to 60 miles per hour, leaving almost no living thing enough time to escape. Melasani Cave, Greece. Here, light does not only shine onto the lake, but turns the whole cave into a clear blue illusion where boats seem to float beneath the earth. Sitting on small wooden boats in this half real, half dreamlike space, people feel as if they are drifting into a Greek myth still alive in the water. This strange clarity comes from seawater, quietly travelling underground for 14 days before appearing inside the cave's ancient stone world. The water changes colour through the day, from emerald green to pale blue and then deep blue, depending on how sunlight enters through the natural skylight. The only way to explore this place is by a small wooden boat, slowly passing from the bright lake into the dark cave, where old stone shapes make the scene both beautiful and mysterious. Masaya Volcano, Nicaragua. Before the mouth of hell, people feel as if they are standing on the fiery heartbeat of the earth, where boiling magma sits only a few dangerous steps from their feet. Inside this harsh furnace, green parrots still fly through toxic smoke and live on the crater walls, creating a rare miracle of survival. When night falls, the red glow from the lava lake lights up the sky, sharply contrasting with the bare black rocks formed by old, hardened lava flows. On windless days, white sulfur smoke can cover the whole summit, making the air feel thick and blurry like the inside of a giant metal furnace. Deep below the crater, the magma keeps moving and releasing low explosions, like the roar of gas escaping from inside the earth. Cima de las Cotoras, Mexico. In the green forest, a giant skylight opens deep into the ground, where thousands of parakeets circle up from the bottom of the sinkhole into the sky every morning. When sunset falls, the bird calls slowly disappear. Silence covers the sinkhole, and this once noisy place becomes a mysterious pause in the flow of time. Strangely, many ancient paintings sit up to 70 feet high on almost vertical rock walls, leaving scientists unsure how prehistoric people reached them. In the morning, the parakeets do not fly straight up, but spiral along the rock walls to use the air currents, creating a living green storm inside the deep pit. On the grey stone, red and black handprints made from minerals may have been signs of territory or spiritual rituals from ancient communities. Saltstraumen, Norway. Breaking every idea of a calm sea, Saltstraumen is a narrow strait where the ocean twists into violent horizontal waterfalls. Beneath the crystal clear surface, the fast current keeps scraping away the sand and exposing sharp rock canyons, where only the toughest sea creatures can survive. Every 6 hours, about 14 billion cubic feet of water are forced through a narrow rock gap at speeds up to 25 miles per hour, creating a water level difference of about 3 feet. The strangest moment comes when the tide turns, because the roaring water suddenly becomes flat, like a mirror before reversing direction again. This dangerous wonder has become a thrill-seeker's arena, attracting people who drive their boats close to the edges of the whirlpools to face the thin line between life and death. Channeled Scablands, United States. Looking like a land after the end of the world. The channeled Scablands reject gentle beauty and reveal a torn desert of bare basalt rock. One of the most striking sights is a horseshoe-shaped cliff about 400 feet high and 4 miles wide, once a giant roaring waterfall, but now dry and silent. This disaster began when a huge ice dam about 2,000 feet high burst and released a violent flood that scraped away everything in its path. Across the dark rock lie giant granite boulders weighing hundreds of tons, dropped here long ago by icebergs and left far from where they belonged. With almost no green life softening the view, This harsh land still keeps the cold and empty spirit of an ancient destruction. Kawah Ijen, Indonesia. Hidden in a harsh natural landscape, this volcano holds a giant acid lake about 3,281 feet wide, ready to destroy anything that falls into it. The deep crater is often covered by thick yellow smoke that smells like rotten eggs and can easily choke anyone who enters without care. When night comes, the whole place shines with eerie blue fire, created by sulfur gas burning at about 1,112 degrees Fahrenheit. Before it cools and hardens into bright yellow sulfur, the superheated gas first turns into a dark red liquid that slowly flows down the slope. Even in this cruel place, poor miners still carry heavy loads of sulfur every day, risking their health and lives just to support their families. Lake Natron, Tanzania. Beneath its calm appearance, this lake is actually a harsh chemical trap, famous for preserving the bodies of animals that accidentally enter it. From above, the still blood-red water creates a powerful illusion that can confuse birds and cause them to crash into death. The surface is not soft mud, but a crust of alkaline salt broken into strange polygons, making the place look like a dead planet. Because the lake is very shallow, at only about 10 feet deep, fast evaporation concentrates the minerals and turns the water into an extreme natural danger. This deadly environment is fed by hot underground springs and by mineral ash from a nearby active volcano, which keeps poisoning the lake again and again. Fly Geyser, United States. Born from a failed drill in 1964, Fly Geyser is an alien-looking geological masterpiece created by accident between human error and nature. The rising pressure of this new water tower slowly drained and killed an older well that had been dug in 1916. Stuck open forever, this natural machine keeps erupting hot water columns at about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, shooting nearly 5 feet high day and night. The bright red and green coat covering the tower is not ordinary rock, but billions of heat-loving bacteria growing in the boiling water. Standing before this endless boiling machine, human pride feels small against the wild and uncontrollable power of nature. Mexican Hat Rock, USA. Rising from the quiet desert, a rough stone structure shaped like an upside-down hat stands alone, creating a bizarre visual illusion of balance. Even though it looks completely still, scientific tools have found that this structure constantly shakes in the wind, warning of a terrifying and guaranteed collapse. This danger comes from the massive top, which is 59 feet wide and 12 feet thick, crushing the soft and weak stone neck below with its thousands of tons. At sunset, the rock casts a weird dark shadow stretching hundreds of feet across the cracked ground, painting a haunting and highly cinematic scene. More mysteriously, the extreme temperature changes between day and night cause the cracks to expand, occasionally releasing strange groaning sounds into the dark. Chiremba, Balancing Rocks, Zimbabwe. Rising tall in the middle of the quiet grassland, these 3 billion-year-old magma rocks deliver an extreme and an absurd sense of nature's limits. When swallowed by their giant asymmetrical dark shadows, you'll be surrounded by a primal fear, much like an ant waiting to be crushed by a massive iron anvil. That threatening shape was actually moulded entirely in the dark underground, where acidic water silently carved the stone core before the camouflage dirt layer was completely washed away. The greatest defiance lies in how these massive cells weighing from 55 to 110 tons lock themselves together on a fragile pivot point of just 1 to 2 square feet without any adhesive. The craziest mystery is that this terrifying imbalance turns them into a giant natural shock absorber, gently swaying to cancel out earthquake vibrations instead of collapsing. Árbol de Piedra, Bolivia. Amidst the barren sea of sand, a stone tree rises alone like a cruel and crazy visual illusion of the desert. The biggest scientific paradox is that if this 23-foot tall rock were as hard as metal, it would have snapped long ago, but its soft volcanic ash structure actually helped it absorb the force and survive. This mysterious erosion mechanism is caused by sharp sand grains bouncing close to the ground under 5 feet, silently sawing away the base over tens of thousands of years. The result is an absurdly precarious structure where a massive rock canopy weighing tens of tons crushes a fragile stem measuring less than 3 feet across. More bizarrely, when nighttime temperatures plummet, the shrinking rock lets out eerie groaning sounds, creating a true horror movie scene in the middle of the quiet space. Mushroom Rock State Park, United States. Standing out in the flat prairie, these strange mushroom-shaped rocks appear suddenly, like a surreal art gallery left behind in the wilderness. Their eternal look is only an illusion because winter, frost, rain, wind and time keep wearing down the weaker base beneath the heavy caps. They formed from an ancient ocean floor that vanished about 100 million years ago, leaving behind sandstone hardened by calcium carbonate like durable natural concrete. Strangely, despite the huge weight above, these rocks stay upright because their centre of gravity remains balanced with extreme precision. When sunset hits the stone, long distorted shadows stretch across the grass, turning the quiet prairie into a mysterious rock graveyard from another world. The Bowder Stone, United Kingdom. Defying logic more than gravity itself, this 2,205-ton giant rock balances on an extremely narrow base like the keel of a stone boat. Covered in moss and lichen, Like the scales of a sleeping beast, its nearly 98-foot girth casts a dark shadow that makes the forest feel colder and heavier. Though it stands 30 feet high and stretches 49 feet long, this volcanic rock still feels strangely unbroken, as if it survived the violent shocks of geological history without losing its shape. Modern science still cannot fully decide whether a glacier dragged it here or whether it broke from a cliff and fell into the valley. Since the 19th century, a wooden ladder has led people to its top, making the scene feel even more surreal, as if humans are climbing onto a frozen time machine. Turnip Rock, United States. Standing in shallow water only 3 to 7 feet deep, this upside-down sandstone turnip creates an absurd illusion, as if it is floating on a giant mirror. Even though erosion is well understood, the tiny stem still seems impossible because it keeps carrying the heavy top while storms strike the trees above. This fragile shape was made as lake waves kept hollowing out the base, turning the porous sandstone into an hourglass slowly counting down its own lifespan. The mystery feels stronger on freezing winter nights when cracking sounds can make the rock seem as if it is groaning under nature's pressure. Back in the 19th century, where nearby forests were heavily logged, this dangerous position became an invisible fortress that helped protect the old trees growing on top. Uh, the Cheese Ring, United Kingdom. Balancing near a deep man-made abyss, the cheese ring appears through the fog like a giant stone blade waiting to fall. Modern scientists can explain its erosion, but the fragile base still feels impossible under the absurd weight of the upper rocks. This threatening structure began as an ancient magma core that cooled underground, then was exposed and peeled layer by freezing water over millions of years. That harsh weathering sculpted a strange tower more than 30 feet tall, carrying massive slabs nearly 33 feet wide near the top. During storms, the gaps between the rocks can make the scene feel even more haunting, as wind whistles through the stone and turns the silent wasteland into something alive. Pedra do Telegrafo, Brazil. Reaching out like a broken giant fang above the tropical forest, this rock creates a visual shock that feels almost unreal. Although erosion is well understood, science still cannot fully explain why this beak-shaped granite ledge can keep such a strange balance without snapping under its own weight and gravity. Its origin began as an ancient magma core deep underground, before powerful movements of Earth's crust pushed it upward hundreds of millions of years ago. The terrifying feeling of standing on an abyss is actually a natural optical trick, because the safe ground is hidden just a few feet below the rock. Over time, sea wind, salty air, and heavy tourist pressure may slowly weaken its edge, making this famous illusion feel even more fragile. Torghatten, Norway. From far across the sea, Torghatten looks like a giant sleeping monster with a massive hole piercing straight through the centre of the granite mountain. Scientists still struggle to explain how enormous amounts of rock collapsed from inside without pulling down the extremely heavy peak above, leaving behind a tunnel so smooth it resembles something carved by a giant industrial laser. Djim. This impossible-looking structure, about 525 feet long, 66 feet wide, and 115 feet high, was actually formed during the Ice Age when freezing water entered cracks, expanded, and slowly ripped the mountain apart from within. Faced with such a bizarre landscape, ancient Norse people rejected ordinary erosion and believed the hole came from a magical arrow fired by a giant and blocked by a divine hat before everything turned to stone. The mystery feels even stronger during the summer solstice when the setting sun aligns perfectly with the tunnel and sends a glowing golden beam through the mountain like a newly opened portal. Percé Rock, Canada. Rising from the ocean like a giant iron-red battleship, Percé Rock is actually a massive fossil graveyard formed from ancient sea life 400 million years ago. Facing this strange and almost impossible landscape, local legends once described it as a cursed warship turned forever into stone. Modern geologists still cannot fully explain what powerful mechanism lifted this ancient seafloor slab, about 1,421 feet long and 295 feet high, almost upright, without making it crumble apart. After ages of being battered by ocean waves, freezing and thawing, The cliff keeps cracking and drops about 300 tons of rock into the water each year, as if it is slowly bleeding away. The mystery feels even darker when wind and waves pass through its cracks, creating deep groaning and clicking sounds that make the giant rock seem close to a silent collapse. Engetsuto, Japan. Standing alone in the silent ocean, Engetsuto looks like a tragic sandstone sculpture, counting down toward its own destruction. Science still cannot fully explain the unusual water movement that carved a nearly perfect circular hole through the middle of the rock instead of forming a rough and uneven arch. This porous structure is being weakened from within as salty moisture enters tiny stone pores, crystallizes, and slowly tears the sandstone apart grain by grain. That huge opening, about 30 feet wide and 26 feet high, has shifted the island's balance, leaving the thin arch above under constant pressure from weight, waves, and time. This slow and irreversible collapse turns the island into a living image of Wabi Sabi, where beauty becomes more powerful because it is fragile and fading. Door, United Kingdom. Appearing above the sea like a prehistoric creature bending its long neck to drink, Door creates a surreal and ancient visual shock. Scientists still cannot fully explain the mechanical mystery of how this limestone arch keeps such balance after the original rock layers were brutally fractured and lifted almost upright. Its strange shape began as an ancient fossil seabed compressed from shells, plankton, and coral before continental forces bent the whole foundation toward a 90-degree angle. Thousands of tons of hard limestone now seem to hang in the air, spreading their weight through two narrow legs in a way that feels almost beyond human engineering. Yet this proud stone doorway is also a countdown, because waves keep cutting into its supports until one day the roof may surrender to gravity and fall into the sea. Hopewell Rocks,
Cathedral
Canada.
Rock, United States.
Breaking every normal rule of balance,
Bearing the
Hopewell Rocks
majestic
rise
shape
from the shore
of a
like
ruined
giant
temple
sandstone
from a
flower
lost
pots carrying
civilization.
entire forests on
Cathedral
thin and
Rock
fragile
is
bases.
actually a 4,921-foot high sandstone tomb, preserving dunes from an ocean that vanished 280 million years ago.
When heavy ocean fog rolls across the coast, the tall rock pillars begin to resemble an army of headless giants
The
silently
most
walking toward the
overwhelming
sea.
view lies in the central saddle, where two vertical red cliffs rise on both sides and squeeze the sky into a narrow, suffocating band of light.
In the past, the violent tide here could rise about 52 feet in only 6 hours, creating deadly conditions that destroyed the hulls of many ships caught by the sudden water
Even
change.
though wind and water work like an eroding blade, science still cannot fully explain the strange mechanism that helps these rock towers keep such balanced and symmetrical spire shapes.
Even today, science still cannot fully explain how ocean currents carved these weak rocks, about 39 to 69 feet high,
Filled
into
with
such
iron oxide,
perfectly balanced
this
forms
blood-red
instead of
stone
erasing them
architecture
completely.
glows like a burning coal from within whenever the sunset strikes its surface.
Yet this impossible balance is only temporary because
Behind
winter
its
ice
seemingly immortal
expands
exterior,
inside the
the
porous stone
sandstone
each year,
is porous
slowly
and
tearing
fragile,
apart the bases that hold the
silently breaking
entire
down
wonder
millimeter by
above
millimeter
the sea.
after every harsh desert storm, until it slowly returns to dust.
Cathedral Rock, United States. Bearing the majestic shape of a ruined temple from a lost civilization, Cathedral Rock is actually a 4,921-foot high sandstone tomb, preserving dunes from an ocean that have vanished 280 million years ago. The most overwhelming view lies in the central saddle, where two vertical red cliffs rise on both sides and squeeze the sky into a narrow, suffocating band of light. Even though wind and water work like an eroding blade, science still cannot fully explain the strange mechanism that helps these rock towers keep such balanced and symmetrical spire shapes. Filled with iron oxide, this blood-red stone architecture glows like a burning coal from within whenever the sunset strikes its surface. Behind its seemingly immortal exterior, the sandstone is porous and fragile, silently breaking down millimeter by millimeter after every harsh desert storm until it slowly returns to dust. Externstein, Germany. Rising from the silent forest like giant dragon fangs tearing through the ground, Externstein creates a raw and brutal visual shock. Its history became a dark and unfillable hole after SS excavations in the 1930s tried to use the site for dangerous propaganda about a so-called master race. Science still cannot fully explain the strange survival of these 131-foot sandstone pillars, standing high while millions of tons of surrounding rock have been worn down into lower ground. That threatening shape began 100 million years ago beneath a shallow sea, before tectonic pressure bent and lifted the sediments almost 90 degrees upright. When their jagged black silhouettes fall onto the gloomy water below, the rocks feel less like a landscape and more like a sacred warning about how small human life really is. Goblin Valley State Park, United States. Appearing like a decayed extraterrestrial world, Goblin Valley rose from the sediment of an ocean that vanished 170 million years ago. Under desert temperatures that rise past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, winter ice becomes a ruthless wedge, tearing the crumbly sandstone from deep inside. Even with wind and sand constantly cutting into the rock, science still cannot fully explain what helped thousands of these shapes keep their absurd balance instead of crumbling into dust. When sunset shadows fall, the deformed stone pillars standing about 3 to 10 feet high trick the brain into seeing a silent goblin army surrounding the desert. By carrying heavy caps on thin, shrunken necks, this silent maze seems to break every rule of balance and makes human direction feel completely useless. Marcahuasi, Peru. Hidden in the Andes at about 13,123 feet, this barren stone plateau rises above the clouds and drains the strength of anyone who tries to conquer its thin air. Every late afternoon, the grey surface suddenly burns in red-orange light, creating an otherworldly scene before darkness swallows the whole plateau. The extreme temperature shift from about 68 degrees down to 14 degrees Fahrenheit works like a ruthless weathering machine, slowly shaping volcanic rocks into strange living forms. The strangest part is how sunlight and shadow make dead stone seem to change into human faces, silent beasts, and ancient figures before your eyes. Science still cannot fully explain why so many rock slabs resembling sea turtles, hippos, and other unlikely creatures appear so densely together in this high and isolated landscape. Yana Rocks, India. Rising from the lush green tropical forest canopy, two massive rock blocks standing 394 feet and 295 feet tall emerge like dark, bladed towers, threatening to pierce the sky. Moving deeper into the cold, dark core, the cliffs swallow almost all light, leaving only the sound of water from an underground spring dripping endlessly from above. Sharp. Even though more than 118 inches of rain tear across the surface each year, the giant structure still stands almost absurdly vertical without collapsing. The mystery deepens because the whole wonder is formed from naturally pitch-black, crystalline, karst limestone, an extremely rare geological feature. In the early morning, thick mist gathers around the base, making the giant black peaks look as if they are floating strangely in the air. Judah, Australia. Towering amidst the deadly desert, these 36 bald domes are a massive batch of conglomerate concrete moulded by nature 500 million years ago. The visible greatness striking the viewer is merely the tip of the iceberg, as scientists estimate this entire giant structure is rooted 2 to 4 miles deep beneath the desert floor. Despite being frantically heated to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, geologists remain baffled as to why these compacted rocks are carved perfectly smooth instead of cracking and crumbling under the harsh pressure. The eerie feeling heightens when desert winds sweep through the narrow canyons, crashing into the anomalous aerodynamic structure to create ghostly, echoing shrieks like phantom whispers. So, the massive underground scale, surreal echoes, and a weathering mechanism that defies physical laws create a hauntingly enveloping space where science still cannot fully explain this profoundly absurd feeling. Khao Ta Pu, Thailand. Rising from the quiet sea, this 250 million year old fossilised coral block carries the fierce look of a giant dart piercing straight into the ocean. On calm days, the mirror-like water perfectly reflects the rock, creating a surreal illusion as if a massive diamond is floating in empty space. The sense of impossibility grows from its extreme proportions, with a top about 26 feet wide balanced on a 66-foot tall column whose base narrows to less than 13 feet. This gravity-defying structure was shaped by millions of years of acidic tides and tiny rock-boring sea creatures that slowly hollowed out the softer limestone beneath the surface. Long before geology explained it through erosion and balance, local legends imagine the strange pillar as the remains of a magical nail cut in half and thrown into the sea. The totem pole, Australia. Rising like a giant black needle piercing the sea surface, this rock soars 213 feet high, while its base is absurdly narrow at only 13 feet. Even today, scientists still struggle to fully explain what physical forces allow such a thin, cracked structure to survive thousands of years of violent ocean storms without collapsing. Its rough body was born from a 185 million year old magma core that cooled underground, then split into deadly sharp, vertical grooves like a bundle of stone blades. The surreal feeling intensifies because this entire rock pillar can sway slightly during powerful storms, as if the ocean is trying to bend a giant stone needle without breaking it. Its peak is not pointed but roughly flat, so narrow that only a few people can crowd together there, suspended above the roaring swells tearing at the base below. Spitzkoppe, Namibia. Rising abruptly from the flat desert at a base elevation of 2,300 feet. This 120 million year old volcanic skeleton shoots into the sky and reaches a peak of 5,669 feet. Around its base, massive round boulders lie scattered like forgotten toys, creating a strange optical illusion that makes the whole landscape feel unreal. Under daytime heat above 104 degrees Fahrenheit, the granite absorbs brutal warmth, while erosion has shaped arches, cracks, and smooth stone faces over millions of years. With almost no trees to soften the sound, the open desert becomes so silent that you may hear your own heartbeat and blood rushing in your ears. At dusk, feldspar minerals catch the last light and turn the rock surface into a glowing orange-red halo, as if the ancient volcanic core is burning again. Balanced rock, United States. Glowing deep red under the desert sun, this 700-ton sandstone block balances in an almost impossible way on a tiny pedestal only about 30 square feet wide. A strange sense of pressure appears when cars pass close beneath it because the swollen upper mass can block out an entire section of sky overhead. Although it seems perfectly still, sensitive instruments have shown that the rock can vibrate slightly during strong windstorms, revealing how unstable this balance truly is. Geologists still struggle to fully explain how such a rough and eroded base has managed to keep the centre of the gravity stable enough to support this enormous load for so long. The fear of collapse became so serious that engineers once reinforced hidden cracks with concrete, trying to preserve a natural structure that already feels as if gravity should have destroyed it long ago. Nika Crystal Cave, Mexico. Hidden 984 feet below the dry desert, this cave is a surreal geological wonder and also a deadly place for anyone who enters. Heated by a magma chamber deep below, the air inside stays at about 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity close to 100%. In that extreme heat, even people wearing advanced cooling suits can survive for only about 45 minutes before the risk of heat stroke becomes severe. Although the giant crystals look sharp and strong like huge metal swords, they are actually soft enough to be scratched with a fingernail. Today, this forbidden place has been flooded again by groundwater, sealing away a proud beauty that remains beyond the reach of human greed. Vingaclip, Namibia. Rising like a lonely monument, 115 feet tall in the silent desert, Vingaclip stands alone on a natural hill pedestal. The visual shock comes at dusk, when its heavily pitted surface turns from pale grey into a blazing blood red, like a giant stone chameleon under the sunset. This strange survivor is the final core of an ancient plateau. After floods, wind, and time erased almost all the softer rock and soil around it. Even with erosion understood, geologists still struggle to explain how this single pillar kept such a precise centre of gravity while everything around it disappeared. The threatening feeling grows when tiny stones keep breaking loose from its rough surface, proving that this desert monument is still being slowly dismantled every day. Kannersteinen, Norway. Emerging as a surreal sculptural masterpiece beside the ocean, this 10-foot tall rock takes the shape of a wine glass, with a massive top pressing down on a tiny stem. Although the rock body is perfectly smooth, the shocking detail is that when seen from above, its flat peak reveals an almost perfect heart shape. For 10,000 harsh years, waves carrying ice and pebbles have worked like a natural lathe, constantly swirling around the base and grinding it thinner. Even so, science still has not fully explained the strange geological mechanism that helps this narrow stem distribute weight so precisely without collapsing. Some believe that if the heavy top shifted only a few inches, this fragile masterpiece could instantly lose its balance and shatter completely. Elephant Trunk Hill, China. Emerging from 360 million year old ocean sediments, this massive limestone block soaring 180 feet high and 328 feet long creates a spectacular visual illusion of a wild beast plunging its trunk to drink. Hidden deep inside its rough shell, its hollow gut is actually a secret library, preserving over 70 ancient calligraphy pieces and poems carved directly into the rock walls over centuries. At the water-touching trunk, erosion has hollowed out an arching cave of 1,615 square feet, bringing a surreal scene of a glowing moon hovering under the river on clear nights. Geologists to this day remain completely baffled, unable to explain the absurd mechanism that sculpted this perfect hole without collapsing the fragile trunk, bearing a colossal weight. The vivid sensation heightens during flood seasons, when rapid currents swirling around the base make the rock look exactly like a colossal creature struggling to wade upstream. Bimar sinkhole Gichintel, Oman. Hidden in the dry desert, Bimar sinkhole is known by many locals as the Falling Star because they believe it was created by a violent meteorite impact. In the middle of the sunburned land, the water below shines with a bright turquoise colour, looking like a giant gemstone dropped into the desert. Even when the air above reaches a hot 104 degrees Fahrenheit, the underground water stays surprisingly cool. Beneath that glowing water, thousands of small fish gently nibble dead skin, turning the sinkhole into a natural fish spa. Rising out of the barren landscape, this wonder shows that nature can still hide beautiful life in the middle of a harsh and empty land.